Me and the boys like to shake, rattle, and troll.
It's time for the award-winning Shake, Rattle, and Troll.
Kiss the one grab your favorite pose. Me and the boys gonna shake.
A show for the serious fishermen as well as the novice looking for tips from the pros. Shake, Rattle, and Troll, brought to you by Bill Luke Chrysler, Jeep, Dodge, and Ram. I-17 and Camelback Road since 1927.
Yeah, we got the power, we got the speed. We're running wide open on a midsummer breeze. Freshwater, saltwater, watch out, boys. Bass Daddy Don's gonna make some noise. It's me and the boys gonna shake, rattle, and...
Now, here's your host, saltwater fisherman, the man that fears no fish, Bass Daddy and Tournament Pro, Don McDowell.
Good morning. Hey, I'm Don McDowell. Welcome to Shake, Rattle, and Troll today. In-house with us, as always, the president of the ADA, John J. Colazar Jr., a.k.a. Special K.
Good morning, Bass Daddy.
You know, it's nice to see you in something other than jogging attire, covered with sweat, running down South Mountain.
Yep.
God love you. You just sit back, relax, have the coffee, fresh maple bars from the Dunkin' Donuts, folks.
Yes.
Life is good. We've got a lot of stuff to go over today. Pretty hard-hitting show. We've got our first guest that I'll tell you about briefly, and then we're going to talk to him, Robert Montgomery. You will know Robert as the author of Why We Fish, his website, and his personal undertakings in conservation as the activist angler. Kurt Davis is going to join us as our senior political advisor. Kurt chairs on the Arizona Game and Fish Commission. During the 8 o'clock hour, we'll be talking to James Guggenauer on the Rim Country Fishing Report, as always, a little bit earlier than what you're used to. And then sometime during the second hour, let's say about 8:15, Mark Bronovich, the next Attorney General for the state of Arizona. But right now, we want to go to our friend Robert Montgomery. Good morning. How are you?
Good morning, Don. I'm doing well. And here in Missouri, we've got about the same weather you do out in Phoenix. I was listening to the weather while I was on hold, and it's supposed to be in the 80s here today. So we're having a beautiful Indian summer.
That's nice. You know, I'm looking forward. I'll be on an airplane Monday, November 24th, with a bug-out bag and a 12-gauge shotgun coming back to Missouri to visit some of your birds back there.
Well, I was checking the long-range forecast, and I think the ice and snow is supposed to move in on November 22nd, Don. So
perfect. Well, I can divert and go to, let's say, shorts, flip-flops. Florida sounds good this time of year. What do you think, John?
I think you need to be there.
Dude.
Yep.
Oh, thank you, Robert. Wow, that just kind of blew my whole hunting theory right there. Well, Robert, we're glad to have you. We've enjoyed your book, Why We Fish. We enjoy your newsletter, Activist Angler, and all the conservation things that you do. You and I have been bantering back and forth, and conservation at best is thankless. We have few wins. The wins we get are great, and we have lots of battles that lie before us. So God love you, and thank you for doing what you do.
Well, thank you, and the same to you, Don. And it's a mission with us, I think. It's not about the rewards. It's about doing what we think's right.
Absolutely. You know, the way the country's going with, we'll start with EPA on steroids, the Department of Interior out of control, the Fish and Wildlife Service out of control, and tainted agendas, and the Forest Service, doing land grabs along with the Bureau of Land Management and restricting access out in the woods and all those kind of things, and waterways as well. I'm looking forward to what I consider to be a successful outcome in less than 2 weeks with the elections. We've got elections coming here in the next week, and it's wow. It's kind of wait and see.
Yep, I'm hopeful, but I'm also a little fearful of the times we're in. And the government overreach, you're exactly right. I really wanted to support new rules to be more specific for the Clean Water Act, for example, but I just couldn't, in good conscience, do it based on the abuse of power that I've seen. It bothered me too much. I think the intentions are good, and I know a lot of sportsmen's groups supported those changes for clarification on what waters could be regulated and what couldn't. But I just I couldn't see my way to do that.
Well, hopefully we can get this business straightened out, in the next few weeks and try to get things under control. We let a lot of news out of the bag, so to speak, on government overreach, and here lately I've been termed a radical, a racist, a bigot, and every other thing you can think of. But America basically is pretty dumbed down, and it's like the wolf issue that we're facing here. There's only two sides of it. There's those that want wolves on the landscape in large numbers. There's us that support wolves on the landscape, but with a reasonable cap, reasonable geographic boundaries, and then the part in the middle is the average citizen. And John, you know this. I mean,
I've been in it for a lot of years.
Well, you're our voice of moderation and reason most of the time. And how do you go out and educate the average voter, the average citizen on all the overreach things that we're seeing, that we're fighting? It's almost impossible.
Well, that's what we're finding, and unfortunately, those of us that like to hunt and like to fish, we do that by the passive agreement on that 80% of the public that no longer participates. And quite frankly, they don't know anything about it. They're disconnected from it. Their idea of fish and meat is what's at the supermarket, presented in a very wholesome manner that is a side of beef, or at best, sometimes even a fish that's been scaled and cleaned, and it's just sitting there ready for consumption.
Well, we've got our work cut out for us, Robert, but, I appreciate your engagement, certainly.
Well, the wolf battle you're fighting there, and I agree exactly with you. I love wolves. I really do. But like any other wildlife, we have to manage them. I mean, we've taken upon that responsibility. We alter landscapes, we use the land, we use the water, and for us to continue to live, and for them to continue to live, we have to manage the population. And we're seeing the same thing in other places. Bears, for example, in the east and in Florida. Bears are a huge problem in Florida, and soon somebody's going to get killed. But every time the wildlife agency, the state agency down there, tries to do something, they just face vicious backlash from these ignorant people who don't know anything, and they're saying the bears are innocent, and how could you do this, and the bear didn't get a fair trial. I mean, it's bizarre.
Well, when you mention Florida, I think Florida is a textbook case of what happens with invasive species. Last count, talking to Senator Nelson down there, they had 123 violent invasive species, all the way from the rock pythons, and holy cow, I mean, they just take, I made a remark about going to Florida. Never mind.
No, you're not going there.
No.
There's 30-plus exotic species of fish there. And the Potomac gets all the publicity for the snakehead. There's a good snakehead fishery in Florida right now that you just don't hear about. It's down in the southwest part of the state. But they're catching big snakeheads down there in the lakes.
Yeah, that's true story. We've been watching that snakehead thing. I'm scared to death. It's taken us a couple of years to get snakehead, all the snakehead species, of which I think there's 13 here in the U.S., on our aquatic invasive species, which was a battle to get those on there. And one of the things that concerns me, a lot of this stuff's coming out of the aquarium trade business, and I really push to get some more stringent controls. They have rules, but the enforcement, like anything else, the enforcement is lax. So.
Yes, and the internet allows all kinds of things to happen, which wouldn't have happened in another time. The easy purchase and transport of all these species.
Well, let's talk a little bit about fish, frogs, and fireflies.
Well, I can transition to it very, very seamlessly based on our previous conversation. Most of it is fun. Most of it is lessons about life that I and some friends in fishing have learned over the years from nature. But I've got one in there entitled The Big Picture, and it's about the importance of fish and wildlife management and the growing animal rights movement and the problems that we're going to face there. And the reason we need wildlife management, I came up with a few statistics. For example, back in the early 1900s, let's start there, deer and turkey were almost extinct. We had almost hunted them. They were almost out of the picture. And we brought them back because of hunters and because of conservation and the money that hunters pay into into the wildlife agencies for management. Today, in 2011, with our hunting seasons in full harvest, 2011 alone, 1 million deer auto collisions occurred on our highways, killing 200 people, causing more than 10,000 personal injuries, and resulting in $1 billion in vehicle damage.
Were the bulk of those in Pennsylvania?
I think there was probably a lot of them in Pennsylvania.
Okay.
And that's with an annual harvest of 6 million deer each year.
Wow.
By humans. So that shows you what we have to do if we want to keep these animals around. But as I said, Fish, Frogs, and Fireflies is basically a fun book. It's a book, if you're 40 or over, you'll relate. Fishing is a gateway sport. I know it is for me, and I've seen studies that say it is for a lot of people. You start in the outdoors by fishing, and it leads to other things, and that's what happened with me, and that's what prompted this book, was about all the things that I've learned about life from fishing and camping and hiking and spending time at night on the river, on the shore of a river, and gazing at the stars and all kinds of things. I learned about the birds and the bees from the birds and the bees, for example. There's
nice.
an essay in there about that. So.
Well, Robert, I'm going to ask you to stand with us. We have to thank some of our sponsors, Bill at Chrysler Jeep Dodge Ram, making this possible. Stay with us. More with Robert Montgomery. Fish, Frogs, Fireflies. Sounds like a dandy combination.
Sounds like a great night in the summer.
Yeah, we'll be right back. All righty, we're back. Hey, thanks for joining Shake, Rattle, and Troll today. We've got our friend Robert Montgomery, activist angler online. We're talking about Fish, Frogs, and Fireflies, his new book. Back to you, Robert.
Yes, as I was on hold, I just happened to check at Amazon where the book started Monday being available, and I got my first 5-star review up there. So
nice.
People can learn what someone else thinks about the book. And it should be available Barnes & Noble in a few weeks, and lots of other places as well. But it is up and being sold at Amazon.
Well, it sounds like you cover a lot of good history. I got an email, and you just kind of set me back on my heels. You're gonna love this, John. He says early in the last century, we were about an eyelash away from having hippos in the United States.
Are you serious?
Robert, can you help me out with that?
Yeah, I've got 2 serious essays in there. One's the big picture, and the other one is called Dandelion Wine, WHINE.
Okay.
And it's about all the invasive and exotic species that we've introduced into this country, starting with dandelions. People don't realize those are exotics, but they are. The common carp, which most people think have been here forever and are native, they're introduced too. And back in the early 1900s, water hyacinths had been introduced accidentally and were taking over the wetlands in Louisiana. And along about the same time, as I mentioned earlier, we had hunted deer and turkey almost to extinction because of commercial harvest.
Right.
They were being sold in the markets. And we needed a new meat source, and we needed something to deal with the water hyacinth.
And the hippos just happen to eat the water hyacinth.
Oh, man.
Exactly. There was money appropriated and everything. Washington, D.C. was about to ship hippos to New Orleans, but then somebody became fearful that we bring in all these nice hippos who can live 40 years and have 12-inch long teeth and kill more people in Africa than any other animal. We're going to get poachers. And so it might not be a good idea because we don't want people killing these hippos in Louisiana. So they decided at the last minute not to do it, and instead they started reclaiming wetlands and growing cattle, and eventually brought in the nutria to eat the water hyacinths, which are a big problem down there now, gobbling up all the aquatic plants and causing erosion. Yeah,
but if I had a choice between a nutria steak and a hippo steak, I'll take the hippo steak. I'm thinking.
Exactly, but I think if you live in Louisiana, you're less likely to be attacked by a nutria in your driveway than you would be by a hippo. So.
You know, I've spent quite a bit of time fishing in Louisiana, the Red River, and some of the bayou country down there. And once you get out of your truck, John, it's like going to another planet. It's just.
I've been in Louisiana. Yeah.
You
don't want to go too far.
You don't get
away.
out of the boat. You don't go in the water. You don't go in the woods. It's just.
There's a whole lot of things that can bite down there.
Yeah. So most of them are erectus walk around us.
Yeah.
With shotguns. Well, very cool, Robert. So you're available on Amazon.
When's it in Barnes & Noble?
The publisher told me it takes a little longer to get into Barnes & Noble. Publisher said a couple of weeks. And I'd also like to emphasize, I know that a lot of fishermen and hunters don't like to read, but this book is 42 essays. It's great to read around the campfire, or it's great to read in the bathroom. You can pick it up and read an essay or two and put it down, and
nice.
You don't have to worry about where you left off. So
well, by the way, I know you're big on reviews. You just got 4 thumbs up for bathroom reading, so that's good stuff. Great. How are you doing on Why We Fish? I have to tell you, I have the book. I've read it a couple times, and it's just. It's like Jonathan Livingston Seagull. It means something different each time you pick it up because you're in a different place in your life. It's an awesome read.
Well, thank you. And it's doing well, and that's what got me the contract for Fish, Frogs, and Fireflies. And I've already got another one in mind. I haven't hit the publisher with it yet because I want to give them a little time to recover, and then I'll start working on another one, I hope.
Well, outstanding. I want to tell our listeners, Robert has agreed to join us on a regular scheduled basis with his own segment of the Activist Angler, and we're looking forward to that. Robert, your take on the national conservation issues, especially with fishing, is really going to be welcomed. I'm sure from the listener standpoint. I'm harping and banging on this stuff every weekend for the last 15 years, and to have a new voice, a new perspective. We're talking to Tom Remington in Maine. He also has a place in Florida, so we're bantering back and forth on the Bear Initiative. And the folks that were Bergen Stocks and Slurp Starbucks trying to get the Bear Initiative back there in Maine is just absolutely ridiculous.
That's where you spend $2.5 million if you're the Humane Society of the United States, which is supposedly a nonprofit agency. I can't figure out where that $2.5 million comes from when they're not allowed to use that money politically. And that is totally a referendum driven by them in Maine.
Yeah. Well, the good news about them is they don't recognize fish.
Yet.
Yeah.
We're on the list. You know that.
Yeah.
Okay.
We're on the hit list.
Yeah,
well, Robert, we've got all your stuff posted on the Shake, Rattle, and Troll website. We've got some your good read up there with Why We Fish. These are great gifts coming into the holiday season. Maybe a little premature on that, but
no, you're not. They're doing it already.
Really?
Oh yeah, I saw. People are starting to bring out holiday stuff. I know. You and I are men. We don't think about this until December 20th at the earliest.
I just got reminded Halloween's around the corner. But, I have to have a bone to pick with the Game and Fish Department because as a youth coming up, deer season was in October. And my Halloween costume was Elmer Fudd hunting hat, which my granddad made me wear to begin with, a red flannel shirt, jeans with the hole in the left knee, and hunting boots. That was it.
Well, it's perfect.
And now I have to wait for the next month because hunting season's not until October, in November.
Wow.
Yeah. Okay.
You're
all
hunting.
right. I'm done, Robert. I mean, just another observation.
Well, let me add that Fish, Frogs, and Fireflies is also a good Halloween read. I've got a really scary story in there about toads.
About what?
Toads.
Toads.
Yeah. Toads and my grandmother. So it's a good one. It's the second one in there, and I think people are really going to get a charge out of it.
So what I'm hearing you say, you're letting family secrets out.
Yeah.
Nice.
Oh, Robert.
All right, hey, we're going to wish you a really good weekend, and we'll be chatting next week, I'm sure. Give your website out for your newsletter and your website, Robert.
It's activistangler.com.
Easy enough.
And I also have a lot of stuff on there about the books as well as conservation, environmental issues, and sometimes even how to catch fish.
Attaboy. You keep doing what you're doing, Robert. You're the best.
Hey, John, I really appreciate it, guys. Thank you so much. I really enjoyed it.
Okay, we appreciate you being part of the Shake, Rattle, and Troll family. All righty, check out activistangler.com. Fish, frogs, fireflies, good stuff, grandma, and a toad. Think about that. I mean, not long.
No, we don't need to go there.
Okay, we want to welcome our senior political advisor, Kurt Davis, is in the house.
Commissioner Kurt Davis.
Good morning.
Well, he's got a number of titles. He's our senior political advisor. He's an Arizona Game and Fish Commissioner. Mm-hmm. He's a TV star. Do you know he had his own TV program?
I saw some of that. Yes, I was impressed.
I always thought he had a face for radio.
I knew he had a face for radio.
I definitely have a face for radio.
Welcome, Commissioner. How are you, sir?
Good. Good morning. I was really enjoying listening to that. I haven't read Why We Fish, so I'm gonna order that right away.
It is an excellent book. This other one is got some excerpts from Gene Gilliland, the National Conservation Director from BASS, been involved with bass for decades.
I figured out my Christmas gift to myself. I got 2 books to read.
Nice. Actually, you'll have 3, but that's a story for another time.
Don's going to write a book.
No. I personally have an autographed copy of Blood in the Tracks for Commissioner Davis.
Yes, you do.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. All righty, stand down, take a break. We'll come back and visit with Commissioner Kurt Davis. I'm Don McDowell with
Special K.
Moderation and Reason.
Kurt Davis.
All righty, we're back. Commissioner Davis, welcome.
Good morning.
What's happening in the world of commissioners these days?
Well, we have our November workshop coming up in a couple weeks.
Are there centerfire long guns involved?
No, there'll be fishing poles involved.
Nice.
Yeah.
Cool.
Hopefully be able to throw a fly out in Lease Ferry. We're going to be focused on
red wigglers.
Yeah. San Juan worms. I've
been trying, those guys working on that plan up there. I've suggested numerous times that they consider stocking smallmouth. And it's meant the fly guys were just going nuts. What are you thinking? Dude, ever use a bait caster?
I use both. So it's fine with me.
Yeah.
I like to see some tiger trout in there. That'd be the most fun.
Ooh, yeah.
At the workshop, we'll be really focused on issues like the bison, monument expansion, those kinds of things. And following up, I'm sure, we'll have lots of discussions about wolves and
that seems to be an ongoing topic, and I, with all the hard work the commission's done, the department's done, Terry Johnson's done, I believe that's going to be a topic for the rest of my life.
Probably, absolutely.
I don't see it coming to a conclusion successfully for at least 2 litigation sessions.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. I mean, there's no quick fix. There will, I'm sure, ultimately be litigation. And it's unfortunate, but that's the road we're on. It is.
You're heavily involved in the political arena. Tell me a little bit about your television show.
Well, AZTV, Channel 7 or 13.
13.
Depending on what your cable service is. And it's on Saturdays at 6 p.m. It's called The 48th. Last night was the first show, actually, and we had Senator John McCain as our very first guest.
Outstanding.
Kudos on getting.
I'm glad he answered your emails.
No, it was a lot of fun to have him on, and we talked a lot about ISIS and Ebola, but we also talked about natural resources. And as you know, he's been very active in working on issues like bison. He's also been helping us with getting the Willow Beach hatchery, getting the feds to get off the dime and get that thing open. And so he's been stalwart. This Saturday we're going to have on Michelle Reagan and Terry Goddard, who are both running for Secretary of State.
Ooh.
So that'll be that'll be. I co-host with a guy named Frank Camacho. Some of you may recognize him.
Yep.
From
Boy, that's the old school
TV
name.
days.
Absolutely, yeah.
I
Pretty
call
solid
him the
guy.
I call him the old man, and he brings up the left, and I kind of help protect the right.
Oh, boy.
I don't doubt that.
So it's a lot of fun. Frank's a good man, and the idea is to actually have civil discourse and disagreement in a civil way, and that's what we're trying to do. And bring on guests and talk about topics, quite frankly, that people here in Arizona want to talk about. We do a man or woman on the street. We let them ask questions. Last show we had them ask the two primary questions, which were ISIS and Ebola. So we're trying to involve the public in getting things answered that they want to hear about.
I'm going to have to watch that. I'm a huge Megyn Kelly, Bill O'Reilly fan, and Bill O'Reilly's doing Water's World, and he just recently asked about Ebola, and they thought he played for the New York Jets. I'm serious. This is so stupid. You can't make this stuff up.
Yeah, no, it's
and then it was over at Harvard. The question was posed: who's more of a world threat, America or ISIS? Out of the four that he interviewed, it was America.
Yeah.
Impacting world peace the way. I'm like,
really
coming out of Harvard, you think?
Yeah. Well, John McCain talked a lot about ISIS and actually how well financed they are.
Extremely.
Yes, you're talking about a fighting force of significant proportion that
They're talking 40,000 strong. Plus.
It covers the area larger than the state of Indiana, and they have the funding, both oil funding, but also other funding sources from other nations who are
really
funding them. Yeah, he talked a lot about that, and that this is a very significant problem. It was a very interesting conversation with him.
I'd like to sit and visit with somebody in the know from the Hill. There's some things that are really bugging me that have just recently come out. Bush was criticized about weapons of mass destruction. We didn't find any. They weren't there, but we did find them. We had them impounded and had soldiers there. Iraq have built army bases around those bunkers, and now ISIS is control of them.
Correct.
The other thing is that I haven't heard. There was a news brief that ISIS was in control of Russian MiG-21s, teaching these guys to fly them. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, we've got cruise missiles, we've got this, we've got that, we've got satellite imagery. We know where the airplanes are. Why are they still there?
That's a good question.
Pow!
Right.
Bang, the game's over.
Well, I think you saw last week some of the airlift supplies that were going into the Kurds that are in Syria actually landed and helped resupply ISIS forces. So
I get that, and
that happens. I know
it does. Looking at those the C-130s and what have you. Yeah, unfortunately, it's going to happen. But
so he talked a lot about that, the necessity, that we do have boots on the ground, whether people want to say it or not. The president has issued there are boots on the ground.
Military advisors is what we're calling them.
Yeah.
They need to be. Military advisors, forward observers.
John McCain absolutely said, and we're going to need more special forces on the ground.
All of this from the very peaceful religion.
Yeah. Here we go again. I mean, that's...
No.
But it was a really, he... Obviously, he's a national treasure as far as his knowledge of foreign policy and
let me ask you a loaded question, not to get anything negative, but I support McCain, always have. Is he as aggressive as he needs to be, or as he can be with the current administration?
I think he actually is. I think he's served the purpose of being, kind of the providing, in this case, the minority viewpoint. Senator McCain tries to do things, not just pop off for the cameras and look like the tough guy. He tries to get things done behind the scenes whenever possible because, if you ever wanted, he ran under the theme of country first, and if you ever wanted to meet somebody that his country is first, that's John McCain. And so just attacking others ad nauseum, but not getting anything done, but you score points with your supporters, it's just not his style. His style is let's try to get something done.
Right.
Now, if need be, he'll bring the big stick and talk about it, but he's a guy that's, he's been around there a long time, and he knows to get things done, you don't always just bang on the other guy across the back of their head.
No, there has to be give and take, and that's sadly because of, and I've certainly blamed technology now, because if you even blink in terms of saying, well, I'm going to talk to him. Okay, everybody's unarmed. This guy he's defeating our purpose. And it's broadcast through every Twitter account. It's on every blog site.
It's almost impossible to have a quiet conversation.
There is no such beast.
You are so right. That has polluted the body politic.
Yes.
We do have a large segment of voters. I look at it like cage fighting. They're there to watch cage fighting.
Yeah.
And if there's not a cage fight going on, they're not interested. And that kind of the rhetoric we see online has polluted the ability for people to reach across the aisle. If you do that, you're a traitor. You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
And that is not that's not what our forefathers set up our republic to be. They set it up that there would be compromise. The Constitution was a compromise.
Exactly.
The Bill of Rights were a compromise. They weren't a winner takes all scenario, and that's how they intended our system. And a lot of people don't realize when our country was founded, there was no such thing as political parties. And in fact, if you read,
we didn't have Starbucks at that time either.
John Adams and Thomas Jefferson talk a lot about how bad it would be if we had political parties. And when the parties started, they were big opponents of of actually having parties. So it's that, and obviously too we spend elections now are 24/7, 365.
Yeah.
Where in the old days the election was over and then you went and served, and then people judged you by what you did and not by what you said, and there was a year or two of peace.
Yeah. There is
not anymore
because of the technology, and because of, I consider it as anybody who sits glued to, well, it started off, I noticed it about 3 years ago with what I call the keyboard killers when you were first coming on. Just on the simple thing of, an issue that was brought before the legislature by a few people who I knew very well. I knew their intent was good, but it was carried to an nth degree. I mean, I personally was threatened. I knew that many times. My business was threatened, and people went off the deep edge. And that's where everybody sits right now, just waiting for somebody who they despise, and they don't even know that person.
And they went off because of a inability to understand a preliminary draft.
Right, I know.
And not the final draft.
There's no such thing as that in politics anymore.
No, absolutely not. We're going to stand down, thank some of our sponsors, and when we come back, we're going to pose a question, how's Arizona stacking up politically? I'm Don McDowell.
Special K.
Yeah, you certainly are.
Kurt Davis.
Yeah, Kurt Davis. We'll be right back. Sing it, JK. Go for it, buddy. All righty, we're back. Oh, my gosh, Commissioner Davis is going to sing. Oh,
yes, we could.
I think you will.
Love Copperhead Road.
Oh, yeah, that's good stuff. We've got our Arizona state elections coming up. We've got a couple of seats we're real concerned about, obviously, Governor.
Secretary, Attorney General.
Probably as important as the governor's seat in our world was the Attorney General's office. How are we stacking up? What's your opinion?
Well, you have by the way, everybody get out there and vote. And if you have an early ballot, you have until next Friday to mail it in. And if not, you need to deliver it on Election Day. And if you don't have an early ballot, make sure you vote on Tuesday. The Attorney General's race, like all the races, you see polls all over the place. Part of what I do is I read a lot of polls, and you look at were they done correctly vis-a-vis what the turnout's likely to be, those kinds of things.
How much credence do you actually put in the polls?
Actually, there's an old saying, you get what the polls say on election day. Again, these are polls that are done correctly. We have a lot of polls that are just not done correctly. For example,
the wolf poll.
People will call, they'll split their poll by what the registration numbers are, Republican, Democrat, Independent. That's not how you do a poll. You do a poll by what the turnout model is going to be, and the turnout model is usually pretty close to the previous similar election. So in this case, you should be looking at numbers. Polls should be done based off of the 2010, because it's an off-year election, non-presidential election. You do polls based on that turnout model or something pretty similar. And in that case, when you look at those kinds of polls, Mr. Brnovich has moved ahead of Mrs. Rodolini. And from my perspective, that's a good thing, and I hope it holds up on Election Day. Because,
well, the motive for asking the question, the motive for Shake, Rattle, and Troll getting involved in politics, which is a good thing and not a good thing for some of our listeners. But, the tie-in is we need a strong Attorney General to defend or take the lead on a lot of the work that the Arizona Game and Fish Department, as well as the Commission, is engaged in. And we haven't had that.
It's the most important office, from my perspective, in protecting the rights of hunters and fishermen, because it does have the ability to engage the federal government in litigation. It has the ability to protect attempts to stop our access, stop our ability to enjoy the sports that we do. And so that it is a huge, very important, and there's only 50 attorney generals in the country.
Right.
They have a national organization, and they have the ability to influence the district courts, and then the appellate courts, and then obviously the Supreme Court. And it's a huge, huge job.
Well, the thing we're looking for is the ability to manage our state's rights when it comes to, obviously,
encroachment by the federal government,
civil processes and issues, game and fish issues, conservation issues, all the way down the line. Our state's rights have been taken away from us. I'm not even going to get started on Agenda 21 and some of the other things that I'm accused of being a conspiratorialist on, but they're there. It's like Bigfoot. He's out there. He's throwing rocks at my brother. Come on.
You guys should be commended for being engaged. I know it's not always comfortable because we do have listeners from all over, different places, Democrat, Republican, Independent. This issue, from my standpoint, forget the parties. It's a philosophy of whether the state has a primacy role in the management of its wildlife or not, and
that's critical for us.
You're right. And so I look at those two candidates solely for me through that lens at this point, as a commissioner and as a hunter and a fisherman. And I know the philosophy, the philosophical backbone of Mark Brnovich is an understanding of the state's primacy role. I'm not as comfortable that Ms. Rodolini has the same philosophical background. Perfectly wonderful woman. Intelligent.
I'm sure, but
it's a different philosophy.
The ideology is what we're fighting.
Yes.
Nationally, from a state side, national side, in a worldwide basis. ISIS is an example of that. Mm-hmm. It truly is. It's an ideology, and that's the problem that I have sitting here behind this microphone for 15 years. I don't mind, a debate based on fact. When I have ideologies that I don't agree with being shoved down my throat, that the state's rights, and I'm not even going to bring up the talk because you're all smart enough to figure it out. 1996, we voted on this. 1998, it became rule. We didn't have that, and now that special interest group's going back to federal judge, whine, complain until they get the right judge and say, okay, we're going to repeal that. And to hell with what everybody voted for in 96, 98. We're seeing that in Wyoming on the wolves.
Right.
And now we've got wolves on the most pristine mule deer herd in the U.S. on the Kaibab.
I'm hoping that just, I mean, if the federal government doesn't have the ability or a plan in place to remove that wayfaring wolf, my suspicion is that he will not make it through this deer season. On the Kaibab.
Here's the issue, and here's the problem with that. The service has known that was going to happen for 25 years. And for them to come out when it finally does happen and go, oh, you know what? We don't have a plan. We don't have a permit. We don't have a plan.
I know.
For Iraq. They just sacrificed over 4,000 soldiers killed in action, over 48,000 wounded, and because of an ideology, we're sending guys to Nigeria.
The question ultimately will become whether or not, I mean, it doesn't matter what side or ideology we support in that region. We're trying to put a democracy in base in those countries. And what happens is they have no respect for a life form. For them, lives are meaningless. So it doesn't. There's no relevancy, and we're trying to have an institution of civility where there is no possibility of that. Particularly when you can't touch anybody with your left hand. Give me a break.
Who's our next governor?
Doug Ducey, I think, will be victorious on election night. You're asking me for predictions, so I'll give them to you.
Absolutely. This is just like Vegas.
Yep, I think Doug Ducey will be victorious on election night, and will be our next governor.
Where are the? I haven't looked in the last week. Where are the polls? How many points?
Of again, the ones I would consider serious, legitimate polls. He's up anywhere between 4 and 7.
Nice.
Points.
I've heard. I don't know his stance, and we've never had the opportunity to chat with him regarding it. Where does he stand on hunting and fishing?
I actually have had the opportunity to.
That's why you're our senior political advisor.
Yeah. He also gets this issue of a state's primacy role in the management of its wildlife. Believes in hunting and fishing as an important part of our economy.
Is he a gun owner?
You know, I didn't even ask him that. I didn't even think to ask him that. I wouldn't be shocked if he is, but
okay.
I don't think he's
I know
a hunter.
Bronovich is.
No, I think he's a fisherman.
Is he?
Yeah,
that's good enough.
But he. You know, in talking to him about the issues, he gets it. He understands what the state needs to do, and he understands the role that we play in the management of our wildlife and enjoying the sports that we do. There's absolutely that was one of the first things I talked to him about when I was kind of choosing which direction I wanted to go in the Republican primary, and he gets it.
Okay,
absolutely.
And what are your plans on?
Fred Duvall, by the way, Fred Duvall is another guy that's a really bright guy. Arizona actually is fortunate. It's got 2 really good candidates. Fred's a good man.
Do you have had works with him in the past, I assume?
Fred?
As a lobbyist?
And Board of Regents. And
I've
known Fred for many years. I've known Doug Ducey for many. They're both fine gentlemen.
Cool.
This isn't a case of good guy versus bad guy. They're both good guys. I think Mr. Ducey is just he's ahead and the likely winner.
Well, for the guys we're engaged with, we've got almost 800,000 anglers and hunters in the state. You guys need to vote.
Absolutely.
You know,
shame on them if they don't.
Yes. You know, that's to preserve what we do.
If you don't, zip it up and don't talk about anything.
There you go. Hey, we're going to stand down, take a break. When we come back, we'll follow this up and introduce you to hopefully the next Attorney General for the state of Arizona. I'm Don McDowell with.
Go ahead.
Kurt Davis.
And John Colazar.
Freshwater, saltwater, watch out, boy. Bass Daddy Don's gonna make some noise. It's me and the boys gonna shake, rattle, and...
Now, here's your host, saltwater fisherman, the man that fears no fish, Bass Daddy and Tournament Pro, Don McDowell.
All righty, we're back. Hey, thanks for staying with us for the second hour of Shake, Rattle, and Troll. If you just joined us, Special K, John Colazar Jr. is here, president of ADA and the voice of moderation and reason.
Thank you.
Commissioner Kurt Davis is in the house as our senior political advisor, and A TV show host. I am stunned. I think that's great. We've talked to Robert Montgomery, adding a regular feature, activist angler. Robert does some really good works nationally on fish conservation and water conservation efforts. Has a new book out, available on Amazon.com. Fish, frogs, and fireflies. Great combination. It all goes together. And now we're going to have our master rod builder from Rim Country Custom Rods, James Guggenauer, somewhere in the northwestern part of the United States. James, where are you?
Well, good morning, Don. Coming to you from Seattle, Washington.
Nice. Where the weather is always cold and rainy. Yeah.
And you know what? The weather is cold and rainy.
Yes, sir. Always is. I have to ask, are you up there on a fishing expedition, James?
Didn't go fishing. We came up there to watch the Arizona State Sun Devils play the Washington Huskies last night, and it was cold and rainy at that game. There were 50-mile-an-hour winds.
That's why that reflected in the score. It wasn't decided until the last 5 minutes.
Okay, who won the game?
ASU.
Yeah,
cool.
It won, but it was a nail biter, that's for sure.
Well, good for them. Okay, what do you got on the Mother Lake report?
Yeah, fishing report for Rosebell Lake. We've been talking about the water coming in and how chocolate and churned up it is. Well, this past week, it has finally settled down, and most of the lake is fishable again. Down towards the dam or where there's not creeks coming in, the water is still staying, but pretty much average for what you see at Roseville for this time of year. So everyone's happy that the water conditions improved greatly this year. 2 baits were pointed out to be the best this week. The first one was a Castmaster. Because of the colder weather coming, the fish are going deep and they're starting to school up. So guys were casting Castmasters into 30 to 40 feet of water.
Wow.
Up around Sally Mae, like the entrance to Sally Mae area, and doing very well. Talked about consistent casts and consistent catching fishing, like every cast catch a fish, and they were counting how long they could do that.
James, was there any mention of using dressed hooks or not?
No. These everyone that I talked to anyway is using either a Castmaster or like a crippled herring. So neither one of those are dressed. Those are just bare hooks.
Okay.
That flash is just, there is a ton of bait in the water still up there at Roosevelt. So that falling imitation shad is what the bass are looking for. The second technique that's being used is a drop shot. Guys, it's getting late in the year actually to be seeing so many fish caught on drop shot. But good numbers, 20 to 30 fish on drop shots again off of Main Lake Point.
How deep are they drop shotting?
20 feet plus minus 5. So, I've been pretty good at Roosevelt. The locals, for sure, are all happy that the water's cleared up. Now, both the Salt and the Tonneau Creek are still flowing pretty good, still flowing at above 100%.
That's great.
Not at the raging level that it was a couple of weeks ago.
Uh-huh. Wow, that's good stuff. How about crappie? Any word on those guys?
Crappie picked up last week. Remember when we're saying that the bite was almost shut down when the water was flowing in there hard, as it gets more stable and more settled, crappie bite will fish. So 2-inch curly tail grub on a 1/16 or 1/8 ounce jig head in 25 feet of water. And the trick is, and this is what every crappie angler will tell you, you need brush, a ledge, or a rock pile, or preferably all three. That's where the crappie are going to be every single time.
Yeah, those crappie, boy, they're sneaky little buggers, aren't they?
Yep, they'll get in there, and sometimes it's the most innocent-looking brush. You can drive over it and look at it on your graph, and it can just be a stick with a few limbs on it, and all of a sudden there'll be a dozen crappie hanging around that thing.
Hey, go figure.
That is going to be the key.
Good stuff. Okay, what's lake level right now with all the influx we've had?
Still at 39%.
Man,
we're we're getting very close to 40% if you look at the remaining spaces available. So, as long as that water keeps coming in, now they're keeping all the down lakes full. The Saguaro and Canyon, they always keep those at 100%. But if we can continue to get the moisture up here and continue to get the runoff, we're hoping for a nice wet winter up on the rim and get that lake back above 70% full.
Yeah, rumor has it is we're going to have a wet winter. Let me give you, while I've got you, a little quick update off the left coast on the saltwater side of life. The three-quarter day boats, of which there were 3, had 65 anglers. They whacked 139 yellowtail, 40 skipjack, not good news, 30 bonita, not other good news. And the one-day boat, there weren't any day-and-a-half boats out that I'm aware of. There's some long-range boats out, but the 3 day boats that were out, 61 anglers, still a great catch. They had only 10 yellowtail, 82 dorado, which is good solid numbers, and 113 yellowfin. Really good numbers still, especially this late in the year. So we're kind of hoping this is going to go into November. We've got counts. The producer had 18 guys on board. They had 36 dorado, 90 yellowfin. The Sea Adventure is one of those boats out on a day-and-a-half trip. Their first day with 32 anglers on board, 160 yellowfin and 64 dorado, and on and on and on. So the saltwater side, right now the fishing's really holding solid.
Yes, when we've talked about those strange patterns on the West Coast. I mean, yellowtail this time of year and those numbers just shouldn't be happening. I mean, they ought to be either moved through or moved further away from shore by now. So pretty spectacular numbers for them.
Well, as you know, we've got, the hunting season is upon us, and hopefully by the time we get through with our hunting excursions, there'll be time left over to run over to the coast and partake of the migratory tuna before they bail. They make a fatal mistake. They turn left.
Yeah, they turn left and they go to Japan.
Yeah,
there's not much future there.
Wow. Yeah, what's on your dinner plate? Yeah, we call it sushi. All right, good stuff, James. You have a safe trip coming back to Payson, where the weather is always nice and not rainy and cloudy and cold.
Yeah, thank you, Don. Have a great week.
All right, very good. James Gubernatorial, Rim Country Custom Rods. Check him out if you need a custom rod. He's the best. All right, back to you, Commissioner.
You are on man card violation notice, just so you know.
He
would have had his man card pulled if they weren't camouflage.
Absolutely.
He's wearing Crocs. That's
camouflage
just so wrong.
Crocs. That's a manly thing to do.
Those are my hunt camp evening wear attire. I love them. After a day of boots, it's really nice.
I'd rather
I just want to point out. I just want to point out, I didn't bring that up. It was Colazar. Okay?
Right. I am not known for my fashion skills either, though. So
that
Gee, really
is a fashion.
Well,
statement.
there's a surprise.
But you didn't talk about my shirt. NAU's big win over the number 2 team in the nation yesterday.
Really?
I didn't know that.
Yeah, they defeated Eastern Washington in their homecoming game, and Eastern Washington was number 2 in the nation.
What's NAU's record now?
5-3, and they have a very young team, so it was a really exciting win.
Any prediction on NASCAR at Martinsville today?
Jeff Gordon.
I'll go with that.
I'm going
Mikey.
I'm going to stick it way out here. I'm going to go with somebody not in the chase.
Really?
Yeah. There's Tony and Dale. Great short track drive, and it's a short track. There's going to be a lot of bent fenders, a lot of swap paint, marks on the wall. Nice.
Always makes him happy. Violent auto racing.
What?
Never mind.
All right, we'll be back. He's picking on me. Come on, JK.
Without hurting anybody else.
All righty, we're back. Kicking a lot of stuff around. Appreciate Commissioner Davis kicking in. You'd mentioned you're working on the bison.
Unit 48.
Any news? The new Unit 48 that he proposed. We all voted. By the way,
love that.
You had a unanimous vote from us.
Yeah,
We're always looking to you for a vote.
I assume the Grand Canyon National Park supervisor went up, almost had a heart attack when you mentioned that.
He didn't like it. No, he contacted the director and said, "Why are you doing this this early in the process of evaluation?"
Because if we don't do it, it'll never get done, and if we bring it in later, it's too late to make that kind of a comment.
Absolutely.
And that's a primary example of more overreach. There doesn't need to be a process. They have 400. They want 200.
By the time they get
out.
to the point where the process is over, which will be 2.5 to 4 years,
there will be 600.
Exactly.
Correct. I think we're probably closer to 500 now.
Really? Oh my gosh!
It's been a good couple of years up there for
Buffalo.
For Buffalo, yeah. So,
I mean, it's a spot.
Can't we make a deal with our friends on the San Carlos Apache Nation to take some of those buffalo over there and put them on the nation?
I think
it's going to be another $1,500 hunt.
Yeah, no options. The options of managing the herd do include relocation. It's not just the hunting solution, although that's a primary and has to happen. Yes. If they actually want to manage
They're not
the
going
herd.
to allow hunting, which would make money and provide opportunity for the hunting community. They are going to bring in their snipers, and then they're going to do whatever they want to do.
Those
and they're
are
going to cost us
volunteers.
money.
If they do that, I can assure you there'll be litigation if they were to actually go that route, because we all know that violates all of our ethics. And
sure it does.
Totally.
I can guarantee you, I would have no doubt that the commission would instruct the department to sue if that were the chosen alternative. That was one of the reasons we took John McCain up to the canyon he actually met face to face with the superintendent to get a report on where we stand in the process, and made it clear when he was up there that he hopes that the solution is something that the department and the commission support, and basically with a wink and a nod said, and if it's not, then we'll look at federal congressional action.
Good.
So here's the bottom line. I don't believe they will come to the decision to allow hunting. The Park Service won't. Where there's hunting in national parks has all been done by congressional action, because they're not going to come to their own conclusion that
hunting is a viable solution.
Yeah. I'll be shocked, I guess I should say. Now, I hope I'm shocked, but if not, we're still looking at the congressional alternatives. There are bills that will move.
What's the time frame?
Well, new bills will be introduced in January with the new Congress.
Well, I know there's 400 of them sitting on Harry Reid's desk.
Well, but Harry Reid may not be controlling those
one
bills.
can only hope.
And again, it would be a very reasonable bill. They'll establish and allow a hunt on the north rim. We can very clear. So I do believe that Unit 48 will become a reality.
I'll tell you what.
Wow.
If it doesn't work out that way, I would suggest strongly that we have everybody from the Sierra Club and the Humane Society of the United States participate as beavers to drive them from the park into north outside of the park.
Yeah.
Now,
we
is
moved.
that moderation and reason right there?
That is.
We moved 19 of them. As a.
I heard they weren't happy about
They
it.
were not. They were very unhappy.
Nothing
because
worse
genetically, none of them are from the House Rock facility. So genetically, they don't know that area. So it'd be, give
them a map.
It was almost like you lived in Colorado, right? And then you got moved to
Phoenix
or somewhere out in the middle of Nevada.
Biggest kitty litter box in the world, yeah.
So they weren't happy, and I think we know what will happen is they will return to where they were happy. And if I were sitting down at House Rock looking up on the rim, I'd go walking up there too.
Yeah.
Yeah, boy.
So,
all righty. Well, hey, it's my pleasure to introduce the next Attorney General of the great state of Arizona, Mark Brnovich. Welcome.
Thank you very much, Don, for having me on today.
We're honored to have you here. We're in full support of all of your campaign efforts, and just for the record, we had a vote this morning. You're in.
Oh, thank you very much. Appreciate
That's the survey that'll be posted on the website today.
Well, I couldn't, I was listening as I was coming in today, and there's a couple things I'd like to start off by saying, if you don't mind, Don.
Please.
First of all, the croc conversation. I will tell you a true story. One of my best friends I grew up with, Dan Painter, He was a linguist, a Russian specialist in the military, became a Black Hawk pilot, total hardcore, high speed, low drag kind of guy. He would wear Crocs all the time, and I'd always give him crap about it. I'd always be like, come on, can I say, I'm sorry. Oops.
You can.
Sorry.
We're good. It's
all
okay.
Right, and it's morning. I haven't had my
coffee. It's not one of the bad words. We're all right.
I haven't had my coffee yet. Anyway, so I'd always give him the business about that. And one Christmas, my mother gave me a pair.
Ooh.
And I was like, oh, this is like getting a sweatsuit. But my mom, and I started wearing them around the house. And I was like, these things are stinking comfortable,
this
man.
Is going bad.
And the next thing you know, you find yourself like wearing them to the gas station. It's it's like mission creep, So I totally get that.
There's going to be a Walmart involved in this before your day's over with.
So I get that. I mean, I'm telling you, it's don't knock it till you try it. So
the one thing I've learned about Crocs is, I thought they were pretty cool for an angler, but if you're in a hot, moist environment, these things start growing between your toes. It's just a bad thing.
There's the truth.
Exactly.
They don't do well around campfires.
Well,
yes. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that pretty much sums up our state leadership right there.
That's when the campfire's in trouble, when someone says, I can prove my shoes are fireproof. That's when you know.
And there has been alcohol involved.
Yes, you've jumped the shark at that point when they had the campfire.
That's good stuff. Oh, man. I'm glad you're here. It keeps them off of me, man. That's good stuff. Well,
the one thing about JK is that I always know he's around. He is not a guy that's afraid to call you.
You think?
Hey, it is what it is, folks.
Moderation and reason?
Absolutely.
Speaking of the canyon, though, I got if I can, Don, the other thing I was thinking of is, the whole discussion on the bison and on the rim and the canyon and everything. It reminded me of something a few months ago I had said. I don't know if you saw, but it was really, I thought, pretty terrible when, the Greatest Generation, when our World War II vets were trying to go to Washington, D.C. to see the World War II memorial,
exactly.
And the President of the United States physically stopped them. He actually, this national monument, national landmark, they created physical barriers, had park rangers go out there to stop people from seeing a free, open a monument to our veterans. And I thought to myself at that moment, maybe we should declare the border a national monument, and that'll keep President Obama still. We'll end up securing it. So.
I have a couple of questions, and that's one of them. You're probably the most crucial seat in my mind for all of our state government. Without a strong AG, we're swimming backwards. And you've got a party campaign, a campaign platform, and I want you to get that out there the way you want to put it out there, and you're welcome to do that.
Well, no, I appreciate that, Don. Folks, first I would urge them to go to my website, mark4az.com, mark the number 4az.com. It's got information about our campaign. If I can even take a step further back, let me just tell you a little bit about myself. I grew up here in the Phoenix area. Unfortunately, I don't get to go hunting and fishing as much as I used to when I was younger. And
none of us do, by the way.
Yeah,
and
no kidding.
I'm proud to say that I am endorsed by the NRA, and I'm a proud supporter of the Second Amendment. Like I think a lot of your listeners, I probably have more guns than I need, but not as many as I want.
Perfect.
So
I like that.
And so, but growing up here, went to Shadow Mountain High School in North Phoenix, graduated from ASU undergraduate. After law school, I became a county prosecutor. I worked in the county attorney's office for about 6 years. I was a gang prosecutor, prosecuting the baddest of the bad, standing toe-to-toe with gang members.
Oh, good. Then we haven't met before. Okay, that's good. Nice.
I don't recognize you without that red bandana. Okay.
It was a blue one.
Yeah. All right, let's not start a gang war now. All right. Seriously, I have not had my coffee. Let's not get off track.
We have a fresh Dunkin' Donuts maple bar for you.
Okay. All right. Anyway, so I was a prosecutor, did kidnappings, drive-by shootings, aggravated assaults. I worked at the state attorney general's office for 5 years. I was an assistant United States attorney, federal prosecutor, prosecuting corrupt public officials and the largest gambling crimes in Arizona history. I was also director of the Goldwater Institute Center for Constitutional Government, where I wrote a lot about the importance of property rights. And for the last 4.5 years, I was the director of the Arizona Department of Gaming, not game and fish, but gaming like casinos. And where we working with law enforcement, we kept our community safe. We came in under budget, but aggressively pursued illegal gambling, and so that's what I've been doing for the last 4.5 years.
That's very impressive. Wow. All righty, more with Mark, Commissioner Davis, and you and I are done.
Yeah, I figured I'm being terminated, folks.
No, you're in good shape. Okay. We'll be right back. All righty, we're back visiting with the next Attorney General for the state of Arizona, and I want to remind you there's 8 days, 13 hours, 25 minutes, and 27 seconds. Anyway, you get the drift. You need to go vote. You need to pay attention. Listen to this guy. Listen to the Commissioner. John's optional. So,
and you know what? I am the biggest advocate, really, is that people have been receiving literature, and you should know the issues. And one of the things we chatted about during the break was there's a whole lot of judges who are up for whether they should be continued or whether they should be discontinued. Wow. If you read the scores from a lot of the judges and the reports from not only the people who are in front of them, but the attorneys who work with them as well as the other judges, there's some people who need to be removed. And they won't do it without your vote.
You know, the analogy I'm going to make is we as American citizens are entrepreneurs. These people, we are going to hire them to do a job for us. We're going to entrust our state to Mark.
Well, Don, thank you very much. First, you're absolutely right. This is a job interview. I look at this as a job interview. You know, I've never run for office before. You know, we were talking about my career. Most of it spent working with law enforcement.
That's a tough career, by the way.
Keep our community safe. Yeah. And that's why, you know, even we were talking a little bit, and I know I've talked to Kurt about this, is that what's so hard about politics and why, you know, if I could go in a time machine, the saddest thing to me is my mother, who lived through World War II, lived through communism. I have never in my life seen her as upset as she is right now. You know, I have 3 older sisters. One of them was a paramedic. You know, they're professionals. I have a wife who's a professional, works outside of the home. I have 2 daughters. And for anyone to run these bogus ads with no basis in reality, attacking me, saying I'm part of some bogus war, it's just really terrible. And to see my mom so upset, that's what bothers me. And it's really unfortunate, you know, that especially right now this year, the liberals, they're trying to disguise. They talk about, you know, oh, we're not really liberals and we're not going to carry Obama's water. But like my opponent, for example, actually appeared in a video last year with Barack Obama called Turn Arizona Blue. Her campaign manager is the former chairman of the Democratic Party. And so she's a hardcore liberal. And so when we talk about Second Amendment issues, we talk about hunting rights, we talk about fishing, she's going to be devastating. And we haven't even gotten into, you know, one of the issues that I think that as Arizonans we need to be really, really cognizant of is the federal government is promulgating all these rules and regulations.
Thank you.
And whether they're these new carbon rules, whether the new water rules, whether it's the listing of species like the yellow-billed cuckoo, and, you know, that once government does that, once the federal government does that, then they control your private property and not on that public property. And it has a devastating impact on how you harvest, how you mine, how you recreational uses, sporting uses for our public and private property. And not enough people talk about this stuff. And I've been talking about it since day one, because our property rights are very, very important to me. Not only private property rights, but
that's
our
the foundation of this country.
But our rights as a state. And so if you're a hunter or you're a fisher person, if you care about property, we cannot have a liberal attorney general who's going to be carrying the water for the Obama administration.
We saw a lot of that too, and here's the biggest factor that we're seeing in the property rights. You know, I do a lot of work with the cattle ranchers, and they are very adversely affected by the Endangered Species Act, whether it's the narrow-nosed garter snake, the Mexican garter snake, the Mexican gray wolf, or any of the other series of species. And we have the most out of any state in the union. We have over 34 species listed on the Endangered Species Act. Now, there's over 1,500 that have been placed on that since 1973. 2% have been recovered out of all of those billions of dollars that we have spent. That's where, and it's destroying a way of life. whether it is the owl, the spotted owl, that destroyed a timber industry, whether certainly the liberals want everybody off the land. And yes, those cattle ranchers take care of all wildlife, not just their cows. When they're putting in those water catchments, when they're monitoring their allotments, when they're putting in all those fences that are necessary, they're taking care of the land, and nobody's giving them any credit for it.
Well, speaking of the timber industry, this is I don't know if you saw recently that they had to shut down the lumber mill in Greer, Arizona. You have loss of 17 jobs in a small community like that, and think about the impact that has not only on those families, but then the families of maybe the small business owners and the gasoline shop and the grocery store, and that ripple effect. And it's all because of the federal government and federal regulations. You got NEPA, and so you can't harvest that timber. And then, I know you all know, but just maybe for some of the listeners, that what ends up happening. And so decades ago, you get 20 trees or 30 trees per acre. Now you get 200 trees per acre. So when you have forest fires, because of the crowning, they're more intense and they threaten, communities more. And you also don't get the water going into the water table because the trees are sucking up that water.
Absolutely.
So it reduces our water supply as well. So there's all these unintended consequences downstream, so to speak, that we need to be aware of. And this is why we need an attorney general who's going to be there fighting for our Arizona families, for our way of life, for our communities, who's not going to be beholden to the Obama administration. And my promise from day one to everyone has been that I will work hard every day to fight for our families, to make sure that we protect our communities, not in going after the cartels that smuggle drugs and people into this country, but making sure, when necessary, we push back against the federal government.
I'm good. Okay, let's go to war.
Well said.
Yep.
That in a microcosm is exactly why that office matters to anybody that's going to be hunting this fall or going out fishing.
Well, let me ask you a question. As a game commissioner, not a TV show host, but as a game commissioner, what does a strong AG mean to you? What does it mean to the department?
Well, the department can't, as you know, we have a commission and a department that does believe and understand its role of primacy in managing wildlife and giving credit where credit's due to partners like ranchers. But at the end of the day, there's going to be times where there's going to need to be litigation. There's going to be times when there's somebody that has a bully pulpit to stand up and say, you are now infringing on the state's right through the Enabling Act to manage its wildlife, and you have to have somebody that's willing to do that and do it day in and day out, not just when the cameras are on, but do it day in and day out. And I know that Mr. Brnovich will do that. Let's
tie this back to fishing. What does that mean for the hatchery? Willow Beach hatchery? Beach. What does it mean on the Mexican gray wolf front?
Well, Willow Beach would be a great example. If you have an attorney general, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service decided that sport fishing was no longer one of its priorities, and it's actually a required priority. It's why they were one of the basic reasons they were created by the Congress. I would like to be able to call an attorney general and say, can we look at a basis of litigation to force these guys back to do the job that they're supposed to do under their congressional mandate? Now, fortunately, they've already cut and run on that issue, and we're going to have the hatchery fixed in about a year. I think it'll be, and it'll be producing trout again. But that doesn't mean that they won't try this nonsense again. So that's on the wolf. We have a cooperators agreement, as you know. We've offered a reasonable alternative to the federal government. My guess is that at the end of the day, they may accept it, but they're not going to necessarily fight for it, and we're going to need an attorney general that helps us fight. And there are, as we all know in these processes, there are process violations. There are legal violations that occur in these processes, and we're going to need an attorney general that'll stand up for us in protecting the state's ability, again, to manage its wildlife. And wolves are part of our wildlife because they impact, obviously, the other wildlife that we have to manage. And so we need an attorney general that's willing to say that and not just say, whatever the feds decide is going to be okay at the end. And we're going to have people that litigate against a cooperators agreement. They're going to want 3,000, 4,000, 7,000 wolves wandering around. That will be devastating to our wildlife, and we need an attorney general that will be able to point out legally that this will devastate the state's wildlife, and we need to take appropriate legal action.
Without a strong AG, we do not have a first strike capability. We're
Zero.
Waiting for the other side to start firing scuds at us.
Zero. Now, he's going to need support from hunters and fishermen, to be able to pull this off. People are going to need to be supportive, help explain to people why certain actions may be taken, because people will attack an attorney general that's going to stand up for the state's primacy role in managing its wildlife, and we need to be, there, not just at election time, but there with an attorney general that's willing to do that.
Well, I'm going to do my part. I'm going to get him in a fashion statement here of the bad wolf shirt. I mean, you can wear that underneath your shirt and tie.
Yeah, well, thank you very much. I can't wait till I can start wearing T-shirts again.
Yeah,
That's one of the things that also stinks. My dry cleaning bill has gone up with this whole campaign thing.
Yeah, you guys look like a Baptist deacon.
But this is one of my favorite expressions. I love this. Thank you so much, Don. Smoke them if you got them. Or the smoking lamp has been lit.
Yeah, and here's one for your press secretary, Ryan.
Oh, thank you very much.
Okay.
I really appreciate that. It's funny because I noticed you did get me a double XL, so you've seen some recent photos.
I am. No, that's Ryan's best, not mine.
Well, let me if I can tell you another quick story. My wife and I have been married for nearly 18 years now, and she's awesome. She's amazing, and all she's had to put up with me, not just in the campaign, but just me being her third child. But nice. We posted pictures of our anniversary, like our wedding pictures on our anniversary last year, and a couple people had texted back saying, "Oh my God, was your wife married before? Who's the guy in the picture?" So it really is kind of depressing and humbling when you look back at some of those old photographs. You're like, "Dang man, I used to be good looking one time." But thank you for the double XL as another reminder of how far I have fallen.
Mark, I called. I didn't want to be incorrect, and that's what Ryan said.
Don, just make sure you never have to appear in front of him in the future. Think about that. You are now an official watch list.
Boy, don't I know that. Yeah. All righty. Having said all that, thank you for pointing that out, JK. We're going to stay on town and take one more break. When we come back at the end of the show, I'm going to do a little bit of a roll call. We've had no soldiers killed in action in theater this past week. However, we've had a couple of guys, World War II vet, pass away, and another guy you need to know about. I'm Don McDowell with
Mark Brnovich, Mark for AZ.com.
Kurt Davis.
Special K.
That's Davis. I'm a TVShow.com.
Like driving on beaches and a license to fish in the sea.
All righty. Thank you for that, Ms. Producer. Very, very well done.
Great lead.
Mark, we've got a few minutes to get this thing wrapped up. What do you want to get out there that we haven't covered yet?
I just want folks to know that as someone that grew up here, I love Arizona. I've never run for office before. And this, to me, truly, public service is a calling. And Don, I know that you do a lot for the veterans. I never served in combat, but I did wear our country's uniform. I was a member of the Arizona Army National Guard.
Very cool.
I was a judge advocate general, which many of your listeners, I sure appreciate. It's like being the kicker on a football team, right?
Oh, yeah.
Like no one really cares about lawyers in the Army until they really need them, right? And although I heard a commander one time say that no self-respecting leader goes to war anymore without their lawyer, which is unfortunate because even now in war, you need a lawyer around you because of all the law of war violations, and you don't want to end up on CNN or on Fox News, and so. But the point is that I was brought up, my faith, my family taught me that we have an obligation to keep that torch of liberty and freedom burning, and that means going out, letting our light shine into the world, and leaving this a better place. And I've worked my entire career trying to keep our community safe, our family safe, my family safe. So I want your listeners to know that I will work hard every day, be driven by wanting to protect this great state that I love, to keep our family safe, to keep our community safe, protect our Second Amendment rights, protect all of our rights, and make sure that we do everything we can to go after the cartels that are smuggling drugs and people into this country, to make sure we are protecting the most vulnerable, and make sure that we have an AG that's willing to fight back against the overreach of the Obama administration.
I'm good with that. How about you?
Mark, I really, really respect him, and he sometimes. I talked to him about this one day. He diminishes his service in uniform. He wore the uniform, He volunteered to wear the uniform, and that's what matters. And he'll joke about it, but I respect anybody
it's not a
who's
joking matter. It's you engage at the National Guard level, and that's one of the things that I've been accused of being radical about, banging on the Obama administration, and I will continue to do so, about dumbing down the National Guards nationally to pre-World War II levels. Yeah. In this last little stunt that he's pulled, sending the guys over to Nigeria to deal with Ebola, they're not trained to do that. Mm-hmm. And wow. Yeah.
Yeah, isn't there something wrong fundamentally with the security in this country where we're willing to commit our best and brightest, possibly spill American blood to protect West Africa, and yet you've got radicals in places like Syria and Iraq that are undermining our actual security and promoting terrorism throughout the world? As a country, we just got to get back to our priorities.
Well, that's well stated. I didn't state it as eloquently as you did last week, and I've been termed a radical, racist bigot, and so on and so forth. And maybe I should get my Crocs back out. I'm saying.
Don't go there. Don't go there.
That's Don talking, just for the record.
Yeah. Crocs, Birkenstocks, and Starbucks. Slurpus, Starbucks. Yeah. Well, the message is, guys out here, our next Attorney General, we need him. We need your vote. You've got 8 days, 13 hours, 5 minutes, and about 30 seconds.
Mark4az.com.
Mark4az.com.
Remember, I'm the guy that, as Bill Montgomery once said when he introduced me at an event, I am such a fiscal conservative, I will not buy vowels for my last name.
Cool. That was the joke we did earlier when I came in. I said, I'm going to ask him if he can buy a vowel.
Yeah. Yes. I am willing, if anyone can get me on the Wheel of Fortune, to go on there and buy as many vowels as I can.
You can buy one of mine. I've got a whole bunch of my last name.
Yeah, you've even got a Z in your name. I mean,
yes.
Nobody has a Z or an X in their name. Come on.
Colasarianos does.
Well, that's all good. Your website is
Mark4az.com, the Mark number 4az.com. It's Mark Brnovich. Appreciate your vote. Any support you can give us. We've got to close strong here. The left has spent literally millions of dollars attacking me and disingenuously, and so I need all the help I can get. So please, if folks can get out there, vote, grab a friend, grab a neighbor, grab a fellow outdoorsman. Let's just get this thing done.
We will attack them back.
No, actually, all we need to do is really get our people to understand our issues and get out and vote, and that's what's nearest and dearest to our hearts.
That's a hard thing to do. It truly is. Wow. We try, and we get criticized for having an opinion based on the fact and not emotion. Some of it is emotional at times, but it's based up by fact, and unbelievable. Any thoughts on the gubernatorial race?
I think that it's important that Doug Ducey wins. Once again, I just think Arizonans can't afford to have a liberal governor. We can't afford to have a liberal AG.
How about the border? You going to close it?
Well, I think we need to do everything we can. And as I said earlier, that one of my priorities is someone who's actually prosecuted gang cases. We need to go after the cartels that are smuggling drugs and people into this country. We need to go after their financing operations, even if it's cross-border, the money laundering, the money that's used to fund the violence and undermines our neighborhoods. And we need to, I'll tell you one thing I want to do is, I don't know if anyone's from Operation Streamline, which is where the federal government aggressively pursues, prosecutes people that have entered the country illegally. They're about to cancel that program, you may have seen, which has been very, very successful. And part of the reason why the Obama administration says they're canceling it is because they don't have the resources. And I'm willing, if the federal government's willing, I would offer up state AGs when I'm attorney generals to be cross-designated as SAUSs, Special Assistant U.S. Attorneys, to actually prosecute those cases if the federal government won't.
Well, let's tie the border issue in with hunting and fishing. We have a line of demarcation put on the Arizona hunt unit maps by Homeland Security about Tucson. It says, don't go here. What?
Yep. This is our area. These are our lands, and we've been advised there are places they don't want us to go hunting because
that's
it's too
all
dangerous.
the hunt unit there. And me being the radical guy that I am, I think we need to turn that over to the Arizona Deer Association. Just go down there and take care of the problem.
Well,
but that's just me.
Well, Don, I've got the support of folks like not only County Attorney Bill Montgomery, but even Lando Voyas, the Pinell County Attorney, Sheriff Paul Babb, you down there in Pinell County, and they will tell you stories with whether it's spotters on the tops of mountains and what's going on. And we need to make sure that we are aggressively prosecuting those cases. And even even if we have to have a zero tolerance policy. So that means that if folks are engaged, for example, in identity theft, or if they're engaged in smuggling weapons, we need to do everything we can to use state charges against those folks if the federal government won't charge and prosecute them.
Okay. We have to do roll call. God bless you for your service, and thank you for that. And we look forward to you becoming the.
Hey, Don, sorry to interrupt, but a listener wants Mark to repeat the website because she did not quite catch it.
We had a brief pause there. We're going to ask Mark to give us his website one more time.
Thank you, John.
It's Mark, M-A-R-K, the number 4, A-Z, AlphaZulu.com. Mark4AZ.com.
Just think about the Lincoln Mark IV. You got it. We're going to do a quick roll call. We lost another World War II veteran. Hugh Kelly died October 13th, 2014 at the age of 87 in Scottsdale. He graduated from military school and served in the United States Army during World War II as a technical sergeant. Later went on to college, earned his degrees, and practiced as an attorney for over 53 years in our state here. So, from one Irishman to another, I hope you were in heaven 30 minutes before the devil knows you were gone. God bless you, Hugh. And then the racing community, we put Darrell Eugene Dockery to rest at Billy Schumann's outdoor open wheel race car museum on Saturday. Darrell was 77 years old, passed away on the 20th of July. Darrell's claim to fame, awesome guy, started racing modifieds in 1950. Went on through his career to race sprint cars, awesome open wheel driver, was inducted into the Arizona Motorsports Hall of Fame in October 2013, was a member of the ARA, CRA, USAT, SCORE, KRA, and he even raced K flat bottom boats. He was known throughout my lifetime as Darrell Dockery. We're going to miss this guy. I'm Don McDowell.